Everyone knows Ellen DeGeneres as the Queen of Kindness, the dancing host who gave away cars and made people cry with joy. But what if the public persona was nothing but a carefully constructed illusion? What if the most powerful woman in daytime television was hiding a deeply troubled soul behind forced smiles and awkward dances? Rob Schneider finally broke his silence. And what he revealed about Ellen isn't just shocking, it's a story that Hollywood has been terrified to admit for years. The truth is far darker than anyone expected. For nearly 2 decades, Ellen DeGeneres was the undisputed queen of daytime television. She didn't just host a show, she created a movement. Be kind wasn't just a catchphrase, it was a promise she made to millions who tuned in every afternoon. But what if the very person preaching kindness was the one who understood it the least? What if behind every smile was a story no one dared to tell? For 19 seasons, the Ellen DeGeneres Show was a cultural powerhouse. It was the place where celebrities felt safe enough to cry, where teachers were given life-changing surprises, and where viewers at home felt like they were part of a massive, welcoming family. At the center of it all was a woman who had overcome incredible odds. Ellen DeGeneres had been kicked out of show business once before, simply for being gay. After that devastating experience, she built an empire from scratch, turning her personal pain into a global message of acceptance. She danced up steps, gave away cars, and ended every single episode with those 2 simple words, "Be kind." It made her one of the most beloved and powerful figures in Hollywood. But here's the thing about powerful people. They often exist in a bubble. While Ellen was dancing on stage, a very different story was unfolding just out of sight of the cameras. Stories from behind the scenes told of a workplace ruled by fear. Former staff members described a climate where you didn't just need to do your job, you needed to survive Ellen's gaze. One former cameraman revealed that if Ellen looked at you for too long, it was a bad sign. He described it as a piercing glare that would make your stomach drop. If she looked away from you, he recalled, you were probably okay. It was a world of contradictions. While Ellen preached acceptance on air, reports suggested that she was particularly tough on male staff members. In one season alone, 9 stage managers were cycled through. Staff would hope and pray they weren't seated near Ellen's wife, Portia de Rossi, simply because it might draw unwanted attention from the host. The kindness was a performance, and the truth was about to crack that polished veneer wide open. As the whispers grew louder and the stories began to leak, someone had to break the silence. But when Rob Schneider finally spoke, he didn't just reveal a secret. He exposed something that Hollywood had been terrified to admit for years. By 2020, the whispers had grown into a roar. Former employees were finally breaking their silence, describing a workplace so toxic that staff members were allegedly fired for taking bereavement leave. Some claimed they were let go for taking sick leave following a suicide attempt. The stories didn't just paint a picture of a difficult boss, they described a culture of fear, where loyalty to the show meant everything and loyalty to staff meant nothing. The dam broke in the summer of 2020. BuzzFeed News published a devastating exposé citing current and former employees who alleged racism, fear, and intimidation on the set of the Ellen DeGeneres Show. The stories were shocking. Staff members described being fired for taking bereavement leave. Others claimed they were let go after taking sick leave following a suicide attempt. The allegations painted a picture of a workplace where human decency had been replaced by a ruthless hierarchy. One former cameraman shared a story that left many viewers speechless. He claimed that a producer had delayed a child's critical bone marrow transplant at the request of the show. The procedure needed to be moved because it conflicted with the holiday week production schedule. The child's health came second. The show came first. It was all loyalty to the show, but no loyalty to staff, the cameraman recalled. The same former employee also described what he called the Ellen gaze, a piercing look marked by narrowed eyes and sharp cheekbones. He likened it to a queen looking for her next execution. Staff members reportedly lived in constant fear of catching Ellen's attention. If she looked at you too long, something terrible was about to happen. If she looked away, you were safe. And then there was the rule about her wife. Staff members said they would hope and pray they weren't seated near Portia de Rossi, Ellen's wife, simply because interacting with her might invite Ellen's scrutiny. They described how Ellen would cycle through male employees at an alarming rate. In one season alone, 9 stage managers were hired and fired. But the most damaging accusations came from a former household employee who spoke out in 2020. This person had once admired Ellen, believing her to be an amazing person. But that admiration quickly faded. My belief is that someone's real personality comes out at home, the former employee told the Daily Mail. So, after everything that has been said about her at work, you can imagine how terrible Ellen is going to be at home when her guard is down. The employee described Ellen as the worst person I've ever met in my life and claimed she took pleasure in firing people. They were warned before accepting the job that the household had a very high turnover rate and that they should avoid direct contact with Ellen as much as possible. Working there was described as being more like a boot camp, they recalled. Celebrities also began to speak out. Brad Garrett, star of Everybody Loves Raymond, tweeted, "Sorry, but it comes from the top." He said he knew more than one who were treated horribly by her. Common knowledge. Actress Leah Thompson responded simply, "True story. It is." Megyn Kelly later added fuel to the fire, claiming she was very reliably informed that producers were allegedly forbidden from making eye contact with Ellen in the hallways. "You can't make eye contact with her? She's a monster," Kelly concluded. Ellen's carefully constructed image was crumbling. But the most explosive revelation was still to come, from a comedian who had no reason to lie and everything to lose. When Rob Schneider finally spoke, he didn't just reveal a secret about Ellen, he exposed something far more uncomfortable. He wasn't accusing her of being cruel or mean. Instead, he defended her publicly, calling for people to support her. But why would a comedian who built his career on speaking uncomfortable truths come to the defense of a woman who was being called a monster by her own employees? The answer reveals a deeper, more disturbing truth about Hollywood. In January 2019, comedian Kevin Hart found himself at the center of a massive controversy. His old homophobic tweets had resurfaced, and the backlash was so severe that he stepped down from hosting the Academy Awards. But Ellen DeGeneres saw an opportunity. She invited Hart onto her show and publicly defended him. "You have grown. You have apologized. You are apologizing again right now. You've done it," she told him. "Don't let those people win. Host the Oscars." Ellen, the face of kindness and LGBTQ+ acceptance, was now defending a man who had made homophobic jokes. The irony was impossible to ignore. And that's when Rob Schneider entered the conversation. Schneider, a comedian known for his roles in Saturday Night Live and Adam Sandler films, took to Twitter to support both Hart and Ellen. "I support at The Ellen Show, supporting at Kevin Hart for real," he wrote. Comics are the ones who are supposed to say the horrible things we all think, but don't. At first, his words seem like a simple endorsement. But look closer. Schneider was defending the very concept that had gotten Hart in trouble in the first place. The idea that comedians should be allowed to say whatever they want, no matter how offensive. And he was praising Ellen for defending that principle. But here's the twist. Many of the allegations against Ellen's workplace involved a lack of kindness, empathy, and understanding, the very things Ellen claimed to champion. And Schneider, by defending her, was inadvertently highlighting a massive contradiction. If Ellen could defend a comedian who made homophobic jokes, why couldn't she show the same compassion to her own staff? If she believed in second chances and growth, why were former employees fired for taking sick leave? Schneider's defense of Ellen reveals a truth that Hollywood has always been afraid to admit, that celebrities often protect each other, not because they believe in each other, but because they need to maintain the system that benefits them all. Ellen was a powerful figure in the industry. She had the ability to make or break careers. And Schneider, like many others, might have felt the need to stay on her good side. But as the allegations piled up, even Schneider's defense couldn't protect Ellen from the truth. The most shocking revelation, however, came when Schneider himself was asked about his own experiences working with Ellen. And what he revealed left audiences stunned. By the time the dust settled, Ellen DeGeneres had lost everything she spent nearly 2 decades building. Her show was canceled. Her reputation was destroyed. And she was forced to confront a painful truth. The woman who had built an empire on kindness was now being called the most hated person in America. But instead of disappearing quietly, Ellen did something unexpected. She went to therapy, made a final comedy special, and tried to rewrite her own ending. The fall was swift and devastating. In 2020, after the BuzzFeed expose and the wave of allegations from former staff members, Warner Media launched an internal investigation into the Ellen DeGeneres show. The findings were damning. 3 top executives, Ed Glavin, Kevin Lehman, and Jonathan Norman, were fired for maintaining what was described as a chokehold on staff complaints and preventing them from being escalated. Ellen addressed the controversy directly on air. "I learned that things happened here that never should have happened," she said. "I take that very seriously, and I want to say I'm so sorry to the people who were affected, but the apology felt hollow to many." Former staff members had been fired for taking bereavement leave. One employee was let go after taking sick leave following a suicide attempt. A producer had reportedly delayed a child's bone marrow transplant because it conflicted with the show's production schedule. The damage was done. The Ellen DeGeneres show aired its final episode on May 26, 2022, after 19 seasons. It was the end of an era, but Ellen didn't disappear. In September 2024, she released her final comedy special on Netflix, titled For Your Approval. It was her attempt to take control of the narrative. In the special, she opened up about the scandal, the therapy sessions, and the public hatred. "I got kicked out of show business because, she joked at the start, but the humor masked real pain." Ellen admitted she went to therapy to deal with all the hatred that came her way. She told the audience about a conversation with her therapist. "At one point, my therapist said, 'Ellen, where do you get this idea that everyone hates you?' I said, 'Well, New York Times, Washington Post, Entertainment Weekly, Us Weekly. I think Elmo may have said something recently on an episode of Sesame Street.'" She reflected on the irony. "The Be Kind girl wasn't kind. That was the headline," she said. "Had I ended my show by saying go F asterisk 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 yourselves, people would have been pleasantly surprised to find out I'm kind. But for many viewers, the special felt like a missed opportunity. Instead of genuine accountability, Ellen seemed to be asking for sympathy. She joked about being kicked out twice, once for being gay and once for being mean, and warned that she'd be kicked out a 3rd time for being old. Some critics called the special bizarre, unfunny, and self-pitying. The truth is, Ellen DeGeneres may never fully understand why her carefully constructed image collapsed. She built her career on a promise of kindness, but kindness, as she learned the hard way, cannot be performed. It must be lived. And when the cameras stopped rolling, the real story was told by the people who had worked in her shadow. The legend of Ellen DeGeneres will forever be remembered, but not for the reason she hoped. It will be remembered as a cautionary tale, a story about what happens when power meets hypocrisy, when the person preaching kindness turns out to be the one who understood it the least, and when the mask finally falls, the truth becomes impossible to ignore. The story of Ellen DeGeneres is not just about a celebrity scandal. It's about the gap between who we pretend to be and who we actually are. It's about how power can blind us to our own flaws. It's about the people we hurt along the way and the legacy we leave behind. Rob Schneider's defense of Ellen, her own attempts to rewrite the narrative, and the voices of dozens of former employees all point to the same conclusion. In Hollywood, the most dangerous illusion is the one you create about yourself. Ellen DeGeneres once said, "We all just want to be accepted." But acceptance doesn't come from performing kindness. It comes from practicing it. Her story challenges us to look in the mirror and ask, who are we when no one is watching? Are we truly kind, or are we just playing the part? What do you think? Did Ellen deserve to lose everything, or was the backlash too harsh? Let us know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this documentary-style breakdown, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the stories behind the headlines.